Many times in entrepreneurship, people say, what are the secrets to success? Whether you're working at a job that you just love and you don't want to be the boss, or you want to start something on your own, what are the secrets? I share two things. Imagine these because they're going to happen. One, be prepared for a lot of rejection. Whether people close the door in your face or tell you it's never going to happen, you can't do it, you're too old, you don't have the education, you don't have what it takes, somebody else did it, don't listen to them. Don't let it affect you. If you're prepared for rejection, when it happens, it's not going to affect you that much. It really won't, because you're prepared for it. Of course, I was prepared for it. Like selling encyclopedias door to door without an appointment. Hi, can I come in for a few minutes? No, slam. You have to be just as enthusiastic on door number 101 as you were on door number 100. Just as enthusiastic. So you have to imagine yourself in this frame of mind. The second thing, and I say this to everybody that works for every single company in here or has their own company, very important. The second thing is that your service or your product must be the highest quality you can possibly make it, because you don't want to be in the selling business. You want a product or a service so good that you're in the reorder business, not the selling business. Someone wants to talk about it, they want to reorder, they want it to be part of their lives, or it's so good they want to tell other people about it. Not the selling, the reorder business. The quality comes along with that. And all along the way, your business, yourself personally must realize success unshared is failure. You don't need money to help somebody out. Take your time, help someone across the street. Pick up a piece of paper, smile at people. Biggest thing you could ever do, make the world happy.
It has to be a new day. Something new has to change. Something new has to be birthed inside of you to say, I am a conqueror. There's nothing I can't achieve. I'm telling you, I've been shackled from my feet to my hands, but when I broke out of them, I said, I'm a new creature that you are not ready to deal with. Because my comfort zone was disturbed.
But it's built into your thinking. It's built into your imagine what you could do, but imagine that you can do it right now. And how do you do these things right now? What are some of the lessons that we go through to do things right now?
Success doesn't make you happy, progress does. If you don't feel like you're growing, you feel like you're dying. And everything in the universe grows or dies, and everything contributes or evolution eliminates it. And so we don't feel fulfilled. You can meet those first four needs by doing terrible things. You can join a gang and you're a crip. You're significant, baby. You have variety. Somebody may shoot you at any moment. You have certainty. People are going to respond to you. You know, you got connection with the brothers. But you don't really have growth and contribution, so you won't be fulfilled. But you'll have your basic needs be met. Very few people get fulfilled.
Choice is one of the most important concepts that you can get. We're going to be talking about the laws of the universe. One of the laws is the law of polarity. There'd be no inside to the room you're in if there wasn't an outside. You couldn't have a right side to your body without a left, or a top without a bottom, or a front without a back. You can't have a bad without a good. See, the truth is we make it bad or good. Ralph Waldo Trine, In Tune with the Infinite, a great book, he said, nothing is good or bad except our thinking will make it so. Well, if everything's both good and bad, and we bring it together, what's right in the center? If everything here is bad, everything here is good, what's in the center? Just is. Everything just is. You choose whether you're going to look at the downside or the upside. Michael Beckwith gave me a marvelous concept. He said, it doesn't matter what happens in your life. Doesn't matter what happens. You can't control the circumstance, but you can certainly control how you deal with them. He said, when anything happens, step number one, it is what it is, accept it. It's either going to control you or you're going to control it. That's a choice. Step number two, harvest the good. Isn't that a neat word, harvest? Harvest the good. There's good and bad in everything, just harvest the good. Step number three, forgive all the rest. Forgive means let go of completely. It's a choice. Yet if you let go of the bad, the good seems to grow. You and I have a choice. It may be a difficult choice sometimes if you're dealing with a particular difficult individual or a particularly difficult circumstance. Nevertheless, we've got the power within us to do it. So as you go through the day, doesn't matter what anybody says, doesn't matter what happens, you have a choice to say, that's good. W. Clement Stone became the wealthiest man in the United States of America by 1970 because he always said, that's good. Doesn't matter what it was, he'd say, that's good. And then he'd look for the good. That's a good choice for you to make, and make it all day long. So your word for the day is choice, choice, choice. And only you have the ability to do that. And if you choose right, you are going to get results that stick.
What's the difference in the people who get it and it sticks?
Yes.
And those who get it, but it doesn't stick. They can't keep the program.
Standards. It's the only difference in people's lives. What is a must for you and what is a should for you is the difference in your life. Everybody gets their must. If it's a must for you to spend time with your children, I don't care how busy you are, you will. It's a should. You'll want to do it. You'll do sometimes when you feel guilty about it most of the time. People earn what they must earn, not a dime more. I don't care who they are. And when people change their lifestyle and certain things they're now a must, they always have the money for it because it's a must. People, if a person's not in a relationship, an intimate relationship, it's because it's a must not to be hurt. If they're in a relationship and they're friends and there's no passion, it's because it's a must to be friends, but not a must for passion. If they're in a relationship and they're love and they're passionate, then that's a must. We get our must. And the difference in the must is I believe people's lives are a direct reflection of the expectations of their peer group.
I've spent a lot of my life really angry and using rage and anger, a lot of it directed at myself as a fuel for becoming a competitor, because the only way that I felt validated or valuable was to win, period. That's it. I was an instrument for winning and competing. And I only felt good in relationship to other people by somehow being able to tolerate more pain, work harder, to be number one. And it was more a relief of not feeling terrible about myself for a fraction of a day than it was the joy of winning. Yeah. If that makes sense.
It totally makes sense.
And so for my whole life, I've been so completely brutal to myself. And I've realized through a number of different means, one of which anybody can pick up, which is actually a book called Radical Acceptance by Tara Brach, which, terrible title. Love Tara Brach, but a very, very helpful introduction to thinking about the potential idea that if you want to really help people or you want to really love people, you can't do it if you hate yourself. You just cannot fully do it. You cannot. I don't think it's possible. So the last few years have been, and especially the last 1 or 2 years, a process of asking different questions. And one of the questions, there are many different questions, but one of the most important, which is right up front in this book, and the reason the book kind of exists in a way, is what might this look like if it were easy? Things are hard enough. Or they can be. And there's so much uncertainty in the world that for type A personalities or people who've been wounded and have become very highly competitive as a result.
Or highly driven.
Yep. Right? And driven, we usually use as a very complimentary descriptor, but a horse that's being whipped to run faster until it dies on the track is also being driven.
Yes.
And that's not always a good thing, and very often a bad thing. That question, what might this look like if it were easy, is a really deceptively leveraged question, because you start to look for elegance and ease instead of the path of complexity that allows you to absorb and tolerate the most pain, which some people, myself included for a long time, viewed as an indicator of doing the right thing.
And sometimes for me of strength.
Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, no, I can redline for longer than all of you.
Yep.
It's like, wait a second.
Yeah. Wait, what are we talking? Yes.
And this is good?
Yes.
Wait a second. Like, and there, don't get me wrong, there is strength and there are advantages to having endurance, but only when you're enduring things that are worth enduring, as opposed to just making your life painful. So long answer, long monologue, but I do think it's very important to talk about the darkness and the failures and the hard times. And when I interview people, I always try to bring that out because it's so easy, like you said, to listen to an interview or to see someone on the cover of a magazine and think to yourself, wow, I really wish I could do something like that, but I'm me and they're them. And they've got it figured out.
Yes.
And they always wake up at 6 a.m. with like a mental karate chop to conquer the day with no insecurities. And that's just bullshit. It's not true.
Bullshit.
And I can tell you with firsthand knowledge, knowing some of the most impressive people I've ever come across in the world who've become my friends, we all have our demons. So I make a real conscious effort to talk about those so that people can try to create a safety net against self-destruction and certainly at least self-flagellation and berating.
I don't like to think too far ahead.
So you haven't thought alternative
No, I don't like
careers
thinking
or...
too far ahead. People set like goals, long distance goals and shit. That's too much for me. I already feel like I'm living it. And then I just carry on doing that, carry on day by day, already living the final goal, the goal of being the world champion. I already carry myself like I'm a world champion. I already speak like I'm a world champion. And that's it, I just carry on day by day. So I'll take it as it comes. Again, like I said, you were asking me about the future. I'll let you know a little bit closer, you know what I mean? All I can see right now is the gold. That's all I can see.
Problem is, if you have the greatest hammer and the greatest screwdriver and the greatest wrench, the greatest, in front of you, if you don't use them properly, you will lose.
Right.
If there's a nail that I have to put in that ground, but I take the wrench and I hit it when the hammer was right there, it still comes down to the practitioner. And you have to be good at your craft, and you have to love if you don't love sales, if you don't love it, you have no chance. Because it's so hard, it's so painful, there's so much rejection.
Right.
So those are the things I think about.
So technology is clearly an enabler, as you've just said there, though.
Yes.
The person is equally important.
More important.
Right, and going
More
back
important.
to
I just apologize for jumping in, but let me make it perfectly straight. If I go play Roger Federer right now in tennis, and I have the greatest tennis racket ever made, like taken from the Mars's new resources, and he took a John McEnroe 1974 tennis racket, he would whip my ass. I'm crushing salespeople that have every Salesforce, every one of your competitors, 37 features, upgraded, went to every pro conference, watching this. I will beat their ass in sales every day of the week.
Successful people are not people without problems. They're simply people who've learned to solve their problems. And there you have it. Living successfully, getting the things we want from life is a matter of solving the problems which stand between where we now are and the point we wish to reach. No one is without problems. They're a part of living. But let me show you how much time we waste in worrying about the wrong problems. Here's a reliable estimate of the things people worry about. Things that never happen, 40%. Things over and past that can't be changed by all the worry in the world, 30%. Needless worries about our health, 12%. Petty miscellaneous worries, 10%. Real, legitimate worries, 8%. In short, 92% of the average person's worries take up valuable time, cause painful stress, even mental anguish, and are absolutely unnecessary. And of the real, legitimate worries, there are two kinds. There are the problems we can solve, and there are the problems beyond our ability to personally solve. But most of our real problems usually fall into the first group, the ones we can solve if we learn how.
If you're looking to instigate a change in your life, there's no better or worse time than right now. Hey, I understand. Change is scary. With the status quo, you know what you've got. If you shake things up, there's no telling what you might end up with. But two other things are true about change. One, it's absolutely necessary for personal growth, and two, it's gonna happen. Either you can pick the time to instigate the change you want, or the change in the time will pick you. So if you happen to be one of those people who's standing on the sidelines of your dreams, waiting for that perfect moment, if you want to make that change but you just don't know if you're ready, this life lesson is for you. It's time to stop digging your potatoes and jump.
You know, you're always affected by opinion, but the more opinions there are of you, of me, the less I look at them, because I just can't live my life based upon what other people think about me. So I can't concern myself too much with what other people think. You know, it's just not healthy. I don't think I could continue to do what I do if I was constantly worrying about what somebody thought about it.
I'm enjoying the fruits of my hard work. Nobody works harder than me inside the octagon, outside the octagon. I am a workhorse, so I'm going to enjoy the benefits of this life. I'm going to get myself a big mansion in Las Vegas. I'm going to get the soft top cars. I'm going to bring my whole team out. I'm going to spoil them and give them this life. Big steaks that size, we're eating every single night each. We're eating good, we're living good. It's human nature. Some people will sit and take positivity from that. They will look at that and take inspiration and inspire. It will inspire them to go and push for that. Others will shell up and critique it and be negative towards it. But one thing is for sure, those people will stay where they are. The people who take inspiration from it will rise up and also one day experience that life. So this is human nature. Some go one way, some go the other way. But I am enjoying my money, my hard-earned money that I have dedicated my life to.
What worked for me regarding balance between family and business opportunities was always to be mindful of, in a tie, family comes first. My child always came first. If you've managed your relationships properly, the business presentation you're so concerned about, the big conference call that cannot happen without you on the phone, all those things can be rescheduled. But your son is going to have one first baseball game. Your daughter's going to have one first dance recital, and you gotta be there. In a tie, family wins.
There's a bunch of people that will say, yeah, well, I have a family, so, you know, it's a great idea for you to just go out there and go crazy. I have people to support. You need to listen. Stop saying that. Stop saying any of those things. Every single person who has ever done anything worthwhile or exceptional or difficult or extraordinary, anyone, whether it's great artists or authors or mathematicians or whatever the it is, everyone encounters difficulties. There is no easy road. It does not exist. It is impossible. Everyone has issues. If you have time to pursue a hobby, if you have time to do anything in your life, you can better yourself. And here's one way you never better yourself. When you come up with excuses for why other people are successful and you're not. That is dangerous. When you give yourself an escape, yeah, well, that's easy for you to say, you know, you do this, you do. Trust me, everybody has a hard road. I wanted to jump out a window several times during my young life. I wanted to jump in front of a train, just end it because it's too much pressure. Not really, but you know what I'm saying, theoretically. We all go through hard times. We all go through depression. We all go through doubt and moments in your life where it's really difficult and you're trying to figure out what your path is going to be. It's hard as shit. But Stefan and I were talking about this before the podcast starts, that is what makes you a person. And those difficult moments are what build your character. Show me a great man who's the son of a great man. You know, that's what we're saying. These kids that are born billionaires, you're never going to be a self-made person. You have a backup trust for your backup trust for your trust, and you're man.
Should one give up on their dream? Never. Goethe said this, Henry Ford said this, Rockefeller said this, you're only as young or as old as your dreams. And as long as you still have dreams and visions and goals, they keep you young. It's the most amazing darn thing. One of the great stories is the story of Kentucky Fried Chicken. Once upon a time, there was a little boy named Harlan, and Harlan was taught by his mother a special recipe down south in the United States on how to make chicken. When he grew up, he got a job as a short order cook in a small cafe. And he asked his boss if his boss would be interested in this chicken recipe. And his boss said, sure, throw it together, see what the people say. Turned out that everybody liked this special chicken recipe with all these secret herbs and spices. Well, for the rest of his career, right up till he was 65 years old, he either worked in little cafes or sometimes he owned a little cafe. When he was 65, he had a little cafe and he was making his chicken, and he had people coming from all around to eat his chicken. And the highways department built a highway past his little restaurant, his little chicken place, and put him out of business. They cut off the road so nobody could get to it. About the same time, he received a Social Security check, his first Social Security check at the age of 65. And he became angry. He said, I'm 65 years old, but I'm not ready to give up on my dreams. What do I have to sell? And he realized the one thing that had kept him going all those years, the mainstay of his little career, was his mother's recipe of 17 or 18 herbs and spices. So he put them together in little bags, one bag per chicken, and he put his pots and pans in the back of his old car, and he started driving up and down the eastern seaboard, going from cafe to cafe to cafe, to ask them if they would pay him 5 cents a bag for his magical combination of herbs and spices. He called on more than 1,000 restaurants, sleeping in his car week after week, and finally he came across a little restaurant in Toronto that agreed to pay him 5 cents a bag for his herbs and spices. This is back in the 60s. And because of exchange controls, they had to give the money to the Red Cross. That was the beginning of the Kentucky Fried Chicken Empire. We began to sell this recipe more and more. People began to put it on their signs. A major corporation came along and said we could make a real business of this. So they embraced him. They built the franchise. They made him one of the best known people in the world. When he died some years later, he was worth more than $50 million because he never gave up on his dreams. So I don't know if you're 65 and broke and living in your car with pots and pans with no money, but wherever you are, you never give up on your dreams.
Most people don't know what success is all about. And since they don't know what it's about, they really don't know where to look for it. Success is really nothing more than the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. This means that any person who knows what he's doing and where he's going is a success. Any person with a goal toward which he's working is a successful person. This means that the boy in high school who's working toward a diploma, or the boy in college toward a degree, is just as successful as any human being on earth because he knows what he's doing, why he's getting up in the morning, and where he's going. But conversely, if a person doesn't know what he's working toward, what it is he wants, doesn't have a goal toward which he's working, then he must, at least by this definition, be called unsuccessful. Why isn't then, with this simple definition, why isn't everyone successful? Should be easy. Yet surveys indicate that 19 out of 20, 95% at least, are not. In fact, a survey one time asked thousands of working men why they got up in the morning and went to work, and 19 out of 20 didn't know. 19 out of 20 working people didn't have the foggiest notion of why they got up in the morning and went to work. Under closer questioning, they said, well, everybody works. Well, that would be a good reason to quit. In fact, here's a little rule of thumb you might want to remember. Whatever the great majority is doing under any given circumstance, if you do exactly the opposite, you'll probably never make another mistake as long as you live. Just something to keep in the back of your mind. The problem with most people is that they're playing the world's most unrewarding game. And the name of the game is follow the follower. There's a story about a small town in which there was a jewelry store, and like all jewelry stores, or most jewelry stores at least, he had a big clock in his window. And every morning for years, he'd noticed a working man stop, adjust his pocket watch to the same time as the clock in the window. He'd been doing this for many years, and one morning the jeweler was out in front sweeping his sidewalk, and so he asked the man, he said, tell me, why do you adjust your watch to my big clock every morning? I've noticed you're doing that for years. The man said, well, I'm the foreman down at the big plant. He said, I want to make sure my watch is correct because I blow the quitting whistle every night at 5 o'clock. And the jeweler looked at him rather strangely for a minute, and he said, well, that's funny. He said, I've been setting that big clock in the window by that quitting whistle all these years. A very logical thing, but they could have been off 6 months. It was a case of a person just going along with what he thought to be correct without checking his references. So I want to suggest that from now on out, at least we do that we check our references.
Fascinates me about human beings, and it fascinates me about myself, is that we have such a high tolerance for suckiness.
Isn't it crazy?
As long as the suckiness is a routine. But the second you get thrown out of your routine, or the second that, whether it's because you lose a job or somebody moves or somebody dies or somebody breaks up with you or you break, like all of a sudden that awakens the courage in you to make a change. Because you know, either you have no choice or now you got a problem to solve.
Yeah.
But fighting that inertia of life is the most difficult thing in the world. I ended up getting a job with a law firm because it was the path of least resistance.
In Boston.
In Boston.
Okay.
I hated it because I went from being in the courtroom to writing briefs all day.
Got it.
And luckily I got pregnant with our first daughter, who just is starting college, which makes me feel so ancient. I just want to like punch myself in the face that I have a 18-year-old freshman in college.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But I got pregnant with her, and when she was born, I had horrific postpartum depression.
Wow.
I mean, the really scary kind, where you can't be alone with the baby. You're on crazy meds that turn you, not the kind you take recreationally.
Yeah.
Like, these are the kind that like turn you into a zombie. And it was a really scary thing. And I when I kind of came out of the 8-week trance of that, I looked up at Chris and said, I've made a decision. And he said, okay, what would that be? And I said, I don't ever want to answer the question, what do you do for a living? With the response, I'm a lawyer. And he said, okay. You realize we've just bought this house and we have a kid and we have bills to pay. And he said, so here's the deal. You've got exactly 4 weeks before your maternity leave is over. You need to make $60,000. I don't care what you do for a living. That's your problem. Go solve it. And the night before I was supposed to, so I networked like a crazy person. Because again, if you're a human being with a problem, you'll solve it.
Yeah.
And so if it matters enough to you. And so I got a job, and this was the first dot-com boom in Boston. I got a job the night before I was supposed to go back.
As strange as change can be, there were times when it was hard to imagine that my life would be what it is today. Especially the time when my son and I were living in that bathroom. Maybe you remember that scene in the movie. There was a highly polished sheet metal piece over a sink. It wasn't a mirror, but it served as a mirror. And I had to wash myself in that baby every day, wash my baby in that sink, and I had to ask myself some very predictable questions. What happened? Why did this happen? Why did that happen? But the most difficult question I had to get through was, how did I get here? And the answer was even more brutal. The answer was, I drove here. I had something to do with it. You can't change something until you own it. So if you're 50 plus and you're sitting out there and pointing fingers at other people, you can do that for a long time. But it's hard to look in the mirror and say, how did I get here? And have the answer be, I drove here. I had something to do with it. It's uncomfortable to admit that, well, I made some bad decisions. I made some investments I shouldn't have made. I had something to do with it. When that man sold me that house for no money down, I should have told him what he could do with that house. Huh? When I signed that adjustable rate mortgage, we all know these things only adjust upwards. No one's ever going to call you and say, guess what? You're going to pay less for your money in your house next year. Ain't going to happen. So the idea of I drove here is empowering, because the other side of it is, if I drove here, that means I can drive out of here. I have to own it. In that bathroom, I finally had to understand what my mama used to say to me, when she would say, boy, the cavalry is not coming. Ain't no backup. I was 28 years old when that part of my life happened. Change was coming fast. And you know what? Change is everywhere, all the time. Social change, technological change, and the most potent of all, personal change. The most urgent question today is not so much as what are my values and who are we? The urgent question in these times of constant change is, how exactly are you going to navigate these new realities? Put another way, what are you going to do?
Notice I said simple. I didn't say easy. And the reason why it's not easy is because you have to deal with you. And now we know that you're a control freak and you're stubborn and you got all these excuses. You're a real pain. And I'm going to teach you, though, the very, very simple way to get what you want. There's only one rule when it comes to productivity. There's only one rule when it comes to success. There's only one rule to getting everything you've ever wanted. And here it is. You're never going to feel like it. Ever. In any area of your life that you don't have what you want, whether it's the amount of money, the amount of people on your team, the amount of sales, the amount of trips for your family, if you only did the things that you don't feel like doing, you'd have everything you've ever wanted. Those areas where you're happy, you do the work. Those areas where you're complaining, you don't feel like it, so you don't do it. So it's a lot like kids. If you think about it, what's your job as a parent? It's to make kids do the things they don't feel like doing so they can grow up and move out and become independent adults. My son never feels like getting off the DS. He never feels like putting his feet down when he's in the car. My daughter never feels like cleaning up the Barbies. I have no idea why they're always naked, by the way. Always naked. And the funny thing is, when you grew up and moved out, your parents never said to you, guess what? You are a total pain in the rear end. You never feel like doing anything. You don't feel like doing your homework. You don't feel like going out. You don't feel like making your bed. You don't feel like saying hello to strangers. You don't feel like using your manners. You don't feel like cleaning your room. Good luck to you. So the only way to get what you want is to parent yourself, but I'm going to make it easy for you. We're about to move. You've learned a ton about the brain now. The brain is going to screw you over. The brain is going to go into autopilot. The brain is going to tell you it doesn't feel like doing things. It's trickery. You now know that. So how do you be effective with yourself knowing that you're never going to feel like doing all the work that it takes to have this business be everything that it possibly could? So you're going to use the 5-second rule. And what that means is this. From the moment that you have the idea, I should email out the fall collection. I should go through the contact list for my college or university and reach out to people. I should go through my contact lists and invite 23 people this week to just take the dogs for a walk. I should make a request of a friend and ask if I can come do a presentation at lunch at his law firm. From the second you have that idea, you've only got 5 seconds to take action. Otherwise, it's gone. Your brain will swoop in so fast, it'll be like, uh-oh, there's an idea. No way. No way. You don't feel like it. You're overwhelmed. You've got 5 seconds, and that's it. Today, I want you to practice this because what you're going to notice is you're going to notice a little bit later, like in the networking section and afterwards and in some of these events after this particular speech, you're going to notice that you have an impulse. You have an impulse to walk towards somebody that's really successful, that's built a team that could possibly help you. And guess what? You're not going to do it. You've probably had them the entire time that you've been here. Oh, I should go over and talk to this person. I'll catch them later. Oh, that person looks really interesting. I don't know. I should really take some photos of this fall line and start to, that might be too pushy. So what you do, how does it work? You have the thought, you've got 5 seconds, that's it. And what do you need to do? Just say something out loud, that's one way. You could start walking. The second you feel like you should meet somebody because you're drawn to them, again, it's from here, it's not from here, start walking. Because if you're already walking, the likelihood is you'll actually make it to them. And then you're gonna say something. Write it down, schedule it, send an email to yourself, or make the request. One of the things that was so interesting about talking to Tara this morning is it was clear that a couple people had been in there sharing their brains out about Jay Hilburn. And yet it never progressed into the side of the conversation of, would you like information? Would you like to do it? And I'm sure whoever it was that was lying on the table probably had that thought, like, I should probably say something. Should I? Getting a facial, is that weird? To be talking about business at the same time? 5 seconds gone. Talk yourself out of it.
spoke at an education summit for Microsoft. I also spoke at an education summit for Apple. At the education summit for Microsoft, I would say that 70% of the executives spent about 70% of their presentations talking about how to beat Apple. At the Apple Education Summit, 100% of the executives spent 100% of their presentations talking about how to help teachers teach and how to help students learn. One is playing this way, and one is playing that way. One is playing finite, and the other one is playing infinite. Guess which one gets frustrated. So at the end of my talk at Microsoft, they gave me a gift. They gave me the new Zune when it was a thing. And let me tell you, this thing was spectacular. It was the most elegant piece of technology I'd ever used. The user interface was incredible. The design was spectacular. I absolutely loved it. It was easy to use, and it was bright and gorgeous and fantastic. It didn't work on iTunes, which is a different problem, so I couldn't use it, but it was amazing. And elegant. My God, it was elegant. So I'm sitting in the back of a taxi with a very senior Apple executive, sort of employee number 12 kind of guy. And, you know, I like to stir pots. So I turned to him, I said, you know, Microsoft gave me their new Zune. And it is so much better than your iPod Touch. And he turned to me and he said, I have no doubt. Conversation over. Because the infinite player understands sometimes you're ahead and sometimes you're behind. Sometimes your product is better and sometimes it's worse. The goal isn't to be the best every day. The goal isn't to outdo your competition every day. That's a finite construction. If I had said to Microsoft, I've got the new iPod Touch and it's so much better than your Zune, they would have said, can we see it? What does it do? React, 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 react. Finite players play to beat the people around them. Infinite players play to be better than themselves. To wake up every single day and say, how can we make our company a better version of itself today than it was yesterday? How can we create a product this week that's better than the product we created last week? We also have to play the infinite game. It's not about being ranked number one. It's not about having more followers on Twitter than your friends. It's not about outdoing anyone. It's about how to outdo yourself. It's not about selling more books or getting more TED views than somebody else. It's about how to make sure that the work that you're producing is better than the work you produced before. You are your competition. And that is what ensures you stay in the game the longest. And that is what ensures you find joy